Good afternoon, everyone. So, good to, I think, I see good that everyone is back from your tea break. As they said, a good refresher. I think all of you have been sitting here for the last couple of hours. Uh, Good to see everyone back. Uh, Incidentally, I think I have the privilege of having two esteemed chief people officers here representing two very large organizations. Coincidentally, I just learned as we were chatting with them that both of them have just completed 3 years in India. So I think a huge round of applause to both of them. And thank you very much for your time, for being with us here this afternoon. And I think, as the topic says, right, I mean, agility for the future in talent transformation, I think, is a very, very critical topic for each one of us, more so in industry like this, where talent continues to be the key and will be the key. It's, I would call, the spinal cord of the industry, right? I mean, that's what talent is for all of us. Uh, and again, this is a very changing environment. Dynamics change, market dynamics change, technology is changing so very rapidly, and we need to kind of catch up with all of these as we go along. And it's not easy, right? I mean, it's extremely difficult. We have varied kinds of talent, and so on and so forth. Agility of the mindset of the people, the structures of the organization, the large organizations that we have, and how do we kind of work around that to ensure that we are agile in all that we do. With that, I think maybe the first question would be to look to both of you is, how do you both view the key components of the transformation of talent, right? Rajita, if we can start with you, what do you think are the key components in this talent transformation phase, and how do you look at it? Listen, okay, you want to use this? No, you can use this.
Hello. Yeah. Thanks, Srikanth. Let's start off with basics, right? You just saw what just happened. The bottle fell. None of us panicked, and we're still continuing. This is adapting to change and agility. It's a very simple and small example. We have a particular purpose that we're here to accomplish, and how do we take it forward becomes very, very important. So I'm going to start off with the purpose for any organization to be to get people aligned, to get its external stakeholders, internal stakeholders aligned. It's very important to share what are we here to do. And I can share a little bit about Kyndryl, right? Kyndryl is a spin-off of a company called IBM. We're carrying almost about 100 years of legacy, 3 years as an independent company, doing exceedingly well with regards to what we committed. But the main agenda was not necessarily providing for infrastructure services, but doing, it is echoing. I thought that was a sound effect. Yeah. I thought that was the effect which makes you look more cooler than, than it would otherwise. So, that's all right. So essentially, it's important for us to first is, for building agility, adapt agile frameworks. So every organization will have a different way. What we have adapted, at least I can speak for India, is something called a framework. UM is nothing but existential universal mapper. It essentially helps you understand how an organization will evolve from being a basic clan organization, which is a family feeling, to being, in the, what do you say, competing with each other framework, and then moving forward. And then finally is holonic. So today we are in between collaboration and network. And that is something that's very, very important, from that standpoint. The other thing that's very important for an organization to do is technology. How much are you willing to invest in technology? What are the different type of things you're going to use for, say, artificial intelligence, Gen AI? How much are you going to allow? What does your information security and cybersecurity say, and so on and so forth? The third most important, for me, is empowering decision making. If you have, what would I like to say, leaders across and still coming back to an organization, every time it's very bureaucratic, hierarchical, it really doesn't serve the purpose. And for Kyndryl, what we started off with is, and I was just sharing with Laurie, we came up with our Kyndryl way called Living FFF, which is called being flat, being focused, and being fast. So empowering decision making was very important. And the most important, I think, would be scenario planning. How do you focus for disruptions? Because today disruptions happen by the second, not even by the minute or a few days. So how do you build that as a mindset for people who are working with you, and how do your clients perceive you? So running and transforming, all of these are very, very important for us.
I'll just add a couple of comments. First, I'm going to steal the flat concept, the FFF that Rajita spoke about. I think that's really important for every organization to be able to innovate, to move at that kind of pace. When I think about talent transformation, I think about the pace of business. I heard a quote recently that you may have heard as well, that the world will never be moving slower than it is right now. It'll never be less complex than it is right now. So in order to run with that, to keep pace, to be competitive, we have to be continually transformation. Transformation isn't a project. It isn't an era. It's continuous transformation. I feel really passionate about that. And it's our role to make sure that our talent is transforming as well, to keep up not just with today, but what that future is going to look like. And we can never predict exactly what the future will look like. So I think building in that culture of innovation, of continuous transformation is really important for us. Whatever industry we're in, whatever size of organization. And frankly, I think that's where all the fun is. I think that's where we enjoy playing and making a difference for our companies.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both. I think you've kind of touched upon, and I think I actually wanted to delve a little deeper on both the flat organizational structures, which you kind of touched upon, and more importantly, the culture. You know, as especially as you start building an organization in a new geography, how do you do it? And I think to a large extent, given that both of you are just talking of 3 years, I think you were just around the time when people were, thinking of coming out of the complete work from home and getting to offices and so on and so forth. So, and obviously you had those initial challenges of getting people to a place of work. I'm not even saying getting to work, because anyway people were working wherever they were, getting to a place of work or an office as we call it. So how have you been able to kind of, what are those strategies that you've been building as an organization to embrace this one culture in general, and more importantly, I think a very responsive culture, because that becomes very critical in large organizations, in cross-functional teams, cross-geo teams, and so on. Probably, Lori, if we can start with you and how you've been able to build this.
All right, great question, thank you. It's been my privilege to be part of 3 organizations that have entities here in India. So 20 years ago, I had the opportunity of being part of the team with Target that started our Global Capability Center, and then more recently with Optum, and now at Northern Tool. And every situation is a little different, right? But one of the universals in all of those situations is finding really smart people to work with to help you on that journey, taking lessons, advice from others who have been ahead of you on that quest. And then I think also, as I think about responsiveness, all of us have customers in one form or another. And if you're not responsive to your customers, you're probably not going to be in business very long. Your employees are your first customers. You can't take care of your external customers if you don't take care of your internal customers. So the birth of our Northern Tool Center here was, just as you said, 3 years ago, kind of the height of that pandemic. So making sure we had some outside partners, and then also that our first couple of hires were really up for that journey and helping us figure it out on the ground here, because there were things that weren't knowable. We didn't know when the pandemic would end. We didn't know what social distancing rules would be, and transportation, all of that. But I'm a big believer in learning organizations. We'll talk about agility, I think, a little bit more. But when you're agile and you can pivot around those changes, and things will come together and shape, and then the employees that you hire in those early days will be part of the architect of creating your future organization.
Absolutely. And Rajita, I think you will probably be able to bring a different flavor to it, right? You were a new organization, but you also inherited a lot of people and a lot of things from IBM, because you were a offshoot of IBM, or you were spun off from IBM. So how easy or how difficult was that? Because people come with some mindset already for the last 10 years, but again you're creating a new organization, new entity. How did you manage this change?
I don't want to give an official answer on this one, but I do want to give an analogy. And this is an arranged marriage analogy. Okay, so and it's very common in India, by the way. So what happens is that you have the entire family, you have an extended family that decides, that the groom and the bride have to get married. Okay, then everything around it happens, including legal paperwork, etc. And this analogy is directly to the spin-off, right? And this family has been together for years.
Yes.
And then you decide to you decide to get married, and then, you do all the ceremonies, you announce to this, to the world that, yes, we are getting married, thank you, come celebrate us. So what happens when the bride comes home? Okay, and in this context, I'll say I'm the bride. Okay, so the bride has come home. The bride has no idea of how the household culture is, how everybody has breakfast on time, what is the way of communicating, etc., etc., right? And so when I walked in, it was like, this is how we do it. This is what we do. We've already tried this. This doesn't work. This is how we don't do it. I was like, lovely. And the appetite for change, because you have the elders in the house, right? And those are the people who have been working with IBM and Kyndryl now for the last 3 decades, that
Yes.
we've seen it all, we know it all, what do we do? But I have to give it that there are, and this happens only in pockets. Largely, people have been extremely warm.
Yes.
From an openness standpoint, people are like, we've been used to doing only this. You've come with fresh air. Tell us what else can we do. So that openness and willingness to
True.
imbibe new thought processes, looking at things differently, is very, very, interesting and exciting. So if I come back into your point on what is culture, I would say culture is evolving. And for us, what we've done is we've not clubbed culture as part of HR. We have a separate, vertical called cultural transformation.
Wow.
And you
Okay.
have people from across who are dedicatedly working towards this.
Okay.
There is a constant message that happens at 3 levels, Srikanth. One happens at, the CEO, COO level. Then the next happens at the executive level and the top 40 leaders in the across the globe. And then the next happens across the entire universe of the base population.
Yeah.
So the messaging is the same, is clear,
Yes.
it's concise, and also people walk the talk.
Yes.
This quote unquote, not so much corporate hypocrisy, but it's literally living the values of what we've said, and I think that's what differentiates.
Consistency.
It's very, very important, yes.
Absolutely. No, no, great. I think that was, I mean, the analogy was very probably relatable to many, right? I mean, so it becomes that much easier. Um, I think before I go to the one very critical topic, and maybe I think, as we all said, right, there's so much of change around us. Cross learnings, upskilling of people, especially in their careers, I think also becomes extremely critical in today's world, right? I mean, jobs are changing, job roles are changing, job definitions are changing. Technology is completely rattling the whole area, right? How are you each managing this whole pace, right? How are you kind of uh, showing the importance to people that this needs to be done, and how effectively are you able to do this in your organizations? Rory, if we can start with you.
I think I'm going to ask Rajita to be my new mentor and help me with thinking about some of the great analogies. I may want to take the arranged marriage concept back to the US with us. If I think about talent development, the learning organization that I mentioned earlier, and applying some of the other concepts of business, right? I think forecasting is really important. We have to be constantly scanning the environment, the competitive landscape, seeing the emerging skills, and then we also have to have a good inventory of what our current team members have. I've found in the organizations I've been in so far that that's usually a big gap, is understanding the talents and the abilities that people have, everything that's on their resume when they come in, and then everything that people gain beyond that, right? And so if you forecast the skills that you're going to need in the future and you compare with what you have, then you want to create a culture so that the employees that you have and that you want to bring into your organization can continuously take advantage of both internal and external resources to upskill.
Yeah.
We know that we learn 70% of new things from actually doing the work, right? Gig assignments, opportunities to work in new projects or new areas that we haven't had before. That's really important. I had the opportunity in one organization, we were anticipating automation. We were bringing in RPA for a lot of business process work. And we knew we had a very good workforce at this particular site, but that they weren't going to have roles once we completed that RPA. We also knew from our forecasting that we had a deficit in information security, cybersecurity professionals in that particular country. So we let the employees know what was coming. We were about 18 months out of the RPA completion. And we also let them know that we would sponsor their education at a nearby university to complete certifications in cybersecurity. It seemed a little different from what they were doing at the time, but we really helped explain how we thought some of their skills and interests were transferable. We're able to get them through that certification process so that by the time we complete that automation, we're able to redeploy over 50% of those employees into the area where we had gaps. So you can fill the gaps in your own talent needs with your own employees if you get far enough in front of it. I think that's really important.
Absolutely, and it shows so much commitment, right? When you're willing to train them, even the employee feels wanted, right? I mean, they shows the commitment, the long-termness, the career paths that you're building for them.
It's an excellent point. And then we were also able to retain all of that contextual knowledge. They knew a lot about our business. They had a lot of relationships. So rather than having to do layoffs or reductions, the redeployment allowed us to keep all of that skill, that knowledge internally, in different roles for sure, but still leverageable for us as we looked at our business.
Absolutely. Rajita, if you can.
My personal belief is that, and just following up, is how many of you know Vikram or Betal?
Of course, everybody.
Chalo, thank God. I thought I'm a dinosaur. Maybe we won't have that kind of population here. Essentially, so the concept is very clear, right? That curiosity essentially helps you, what would I like to call, build knowledge and also share knowledge, right? And when it comes to learning and upskilling, it has to be more of a pull than a push. But what's very important from an organization setup standpoint is to share that I have these things available for you and you go and pick what makes sense. I think for a technology company, not just us, but I think many of us, if you'd obviously consult with, the NASSCOMs, or maybe take a look at the way Gartner has been predicting the trends of, which technology will be relevant over the years. I think what we end up missing is that while that may be 20%, there's still 80% of the work or the systems that happen on legacy systems.
Yes.
That transition or rewriting of those things has not yet happened. So till the time, with the exception of the startups, if you have other organizations which are trying to move and evolve over a period of time, this becomes very, very important. So upskilling is not going to be on the latest fad.
Yes.
But upskilling is on the requirement of what my customer needs, how am I going to transform the business, and which technology is relevant to me. So that comes into what kind of talent do I have internally and what kind of talent do I want to attract. Like, I don't want to go to campus anywhere you go now on campus, right? Everybody wants to work only on the latest technologies. Nobody even cares about, say, C or mainframes or AS400.
That's right.
But that is a challenge for us. Right? While we've done that, I think what's also very important, what the approach we've adopted is we've come up with alliances. So we work with the Microsoft, the AWS, and Googles of the world. And we've come up with hyperscaler certifications, which are relevant to us. So it's not just doing certifications, but it's also applying those certifications. And that's when, creating new projects and new work for people becomes important. And that's been our approach on
Absolutely.
upskilling.
No, I think you touched upon a very important point. In fact, yesterday at the Mumbai edition, we were talking on a very similar topic. And I think the same issue, and there was a question from the audience, and people said, you're talking of so much on upskilling. What happens to mainframe? And then I think we had, thankfully on the panel, we had somebody from the banking industry, and they said, mainframe is going nowhere. Yeah. We are still dependent on that. And it's just not going anywhere. And will not, right? I'm saying, that's very important for people to understand. So upskilling of the organization is not for the employee alone, but more importantly for the organization to eventually benefit, right? Yeah. That becomes critical. Now, I think we all reckon that change is the most critical parameter, but the most wanted parameter also. Just want to kind of touch upon, each one of you to touch upon saying, how do you kind of manage this, the whole change management? And what's your take on the top-down approach and the lead from the front approach on this? Maybe, Rajita, if you want to get started.
So I met a very interesting person last month. His name is Sam Walker. And he draws a lot of analogies from sports. Mm-hmm. And he spent, I think he took 10, 15 years to publish his first book, wherein he went to every single sports person to understand what ticks them and how do they decide, how they're going to play, how do they motivate themselves, and what really happens, right? What was interesting from his side is he said that every person had a very, very simple logic in life. And the simple logic was that my purpose is to win the game.
Yes.
And how I win the game, even if it's a solo sport, I mean, if it's, say, for example, in the Olympics, something that you're doing on your own, or if you're in a team sport, it is about how am I going to perform and how is the team that's supporting me going to perform. So, say, for example, somebody is walking on a tightrope, he or she, it's not the skill just walking on the tightrope, but the one who actually got the rope tied up on top, the one who's holding that below in case
Yes.
of eventuality, how are you going to do it? So change management, to your point, and how do people trust each other,
Yes.
is built by practicing live. And that's what we are doing. You can't, so for a company like us, we're 30,000 people in India. If I want to roll out change, it can't be top down. It is more dictatorial, if I do it in that sense. But if I want people to literally imbibe and live the change, I got to take people along, and it's more of a bottom up approach.
Okay.
So, we have champions across, we have change champions, we have wellness champions. Wellness is very, very important for us. And we have, business champions and a whole lot of other kins is what we call them, but I'm just calling it champions for ease of understanding here. And the way it percolates down and the participation and adoption that I've seen in the last 1.5 years that I've been here is brilliant. And it just goes back to say that, if you have a group of people together who believe in the cause, they will make it happen. I'll give a very simple example, Srikanth, and I want to commend NASSCOM for it. I see somebody over here who's actually trying to interpret and
Yes.
speak in the sign language. How many technology, events or summits like this that happen in the country have this? This is a start of change.
Exactly.
And that's what makes the difference. And that's what we're trying to do. You won't see it immediately. You'll see it over a period of 24 to 36 months. But that's what we're trying
Lead
to
by
do.
example, and it catches with time.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Several of Rajita's points really hit home. I think a lot about your tie to customers. What do our customers actually need from us? What is our infrastructure around change? What's our intention? What are those processes we have in place? That is all best practice, all things we need to make sure we have. The other things I like to talk to teams about is it's not change management, it's not even change enablement, it's change seeking. If you're in an organization or a function that isn't changing, you should worry. If you think about biology, an entity that isn't changing, isn't evolving, and is probably becoming extinct.
Yes.
So if you can build into your culture that passion for change, that quest for change, people leaning in, seeking, driving it, that will take you then in combination with everything Rajita said into an organization that really can digest and move through change and look for the next wave.
Absolutely. No, I can't agree more with both of you. And I think this has to be like the DNA of the organization, right? I mean, it has to kind of percolate across the board. It can't be just led by one direction. It's not a one-directional, unidirectional strategy. With that, I think maybe we have some time for a question or two from the audience. Maybe if somebody has a question, can you please raise your hand so the mic can come to you? And do I see any hand at the back? I don't. Okay, there is one. Okay, there's somebody in the middle there. If can the mic go to that person? That was the first hand that I saw. Yes, I think he's being. Just a minute, please. The one behind you. Yeah. Yeah. Kindly identify yourself and please keep the question brief.
Yeah, I'm Ilyas. I'm from a startup called Prism Force. So I have a questions regarding the skills. So currently, the half-life of skills, or let's say the skills are changing rapidly, right? So how are larger organizations like Kyndryl, etc., tackling this in terms of maintaining the skill taxonomy? Or yeah, that's about it.
Skills are not changing rapidly. The requirement of the work being done is changing rapidly.
Yeah,
Skills are still
yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
So,
Sorry, my bad.
no problem. I'll just clarify where I'm getting to. So the skill taxonomy is a very dynamic tool and framework that has been executed in the organization. Because to your good point, we are all evolving, and we spoke about change, but it's not about the change, but the speed of the change that's making a difference for each of us. So if you were to, so what we are doing today is every 6 months, we are looking at the relevance of the skill set. We are looking at the relevance from a client standpoint, what really needs to happen, what is a commitment contractually, and what are we doing from a career path standpoint. The last year, we rolled out something called a global skill career framework. We partnered with a lot of organizations globally because we wanted to understand what best practices are. And then obviously, what's happening outside may not work for us, right? So we have come up with a very customized version, but it is customized only to the extent of the organization, not country-wise. Like, we are present in almost about 50 plus countries. So you go anywhere in the country, you'll have a similar skill set, similar kind of understanding of what the competence are and how we're going to move forward. So it's a very, I would say, administratively uh, robust process, and also a very efficient process in that sense. So I know I didn't answer your full question, but there's time's up, so that's what we can possibly take it offline.
I think there was one more gentleman who asked, and we just need a minute or two. We'll just take this one question, please. Yep.
Sure. Yeah, my question is inspired from the statement made by Laurie. You were mentioning for the future, the complexity is only going to go up. Same, the speed with which things are going to change is also going to go up. So yeah, from the next generation's point of view, like, we see two groups of talent coming to the companies. One are very good generalist. They are very good in learning, unlearning, relearning, right? The pace of learning is very good, but they may not be committed to one topic for many years. The other group is more like, I'm very single focused on one topic or one skill, and I want to be the craftsman of that, right? This craftsmanship and that dedication to one skill for years was very much appreciated, like probably a decade ago. But now some of the youngsters who come to me as a leader also, they ask, should I really specialize, because I don't know whether I'll go obsolete because of the rate of change of technology. So the question is, from your point of view, for the next Gen Z and Gen Alpha, what are the skills that's going to remain consistent and where they can build that long-term commitment to that skill set? And
Take this.
yeah,
I think I understand the question is, how do we groom the next generation
right.
to embrace that complexity, that pace? Is that?
The question is, like, what will be your advice to that generation? Like, do you stick to one skill set for long term, or just keep riding the trend and learn, unlearn, and relearn?
There's some interesting research around T-shaped talent. And if you think about a deep, your vertical is where's your strength, your subject matter expert, your focus area, if you will, drawing back to your comments. And then your T is where are you broadening your talent to understand broader business context, maybe start to work in some adjacent areas, if not something completely different. And I think that's the benefit of having that real strong focus area. And also then the T is where we start to expand our career, our business context.
Great. Yeah, please.
I'm going to give an analogy. I love food, as you can see. So it's like, on a day-to-day basis, you would like to eat. I'm a North Indian, so I'll give you that example. I like roti, dal, chawal. Okay, that's on a day-to-day basis. But then there are days, where I want to possibly try Mexican rice. I want to possibly try Far East food. I want to try Chinese food and things like that. So what's the skill I need to acquire for it? My answer is pretty simple. You need to be a generalist. You need to understand everything. You will get into the T-shape, to Laurie's good point, on eating once in a while. That will be for a period of 2 to 3 years. You get maxed out and then you move to the next. But again, it's not that everybody has that requirement. There are some individuals who love to be broad-based across, and they do, and that's their skill. So it's up to the organization how you leverage such skill sets that you have, but you're not going to have everybody specialize, and you're not going to have everybody a generalist.
Absolutely. Great. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's no one way for this, right? I mean, you have to cover both the width and the breadth. Thank you. I think time is up. So thank you very much. I think it was a good conversation. Both of you, great analogies. Both of you bringing in varied points on the same topic, the way each one of you look at it from your own lens and so on. Thank you. I'm sure each one of us have a lot of takeaways in the audience too. Thank you very much. With that, over to you.